What is up, Breakthrough Success listeners? Mark Bird, the podcasting coach here, helping people to launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts. And if you've ever felt like you want to get a certain outcome, one of the things you have to do is do the right actions to lead to that outcome. Now, the problem is people may know what they have to do to get the outcome they want, but they don't want to do the work. So our guest who comes on today, he's got the Crave code in effect, which is a path for you to get the outcome you want by craving the right actions. So you go in and you do them. In addition to that, our guest is also a wellness futurist, momentum expert, and peak potential coach who helps wellness business owners, subject matter experts, and entrepreneurs to build thriving companies and thriving lives. As the owner of Wellness Leadership Academy, and with over 35 years of experience in business, our guest helps audiences to reignite their desire to work, to want to make success happen fast. So our guest who joins us for this episode is none other than Marcus Bird. Marcus, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Great to be here. Really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Marcus, it's a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success. And I feel like the Crave code is a very fascinating concept, getting people to crave the right actions that lead to the right outcomes. And yes, I feel like there's just so much in that. So before we get before we get really deep into the Crave code, I think we should really break it down really simple. How do we figure out what are the right actions we need to be doing to get the outcomes we desire?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I often see people do lots and lots of action, and action on its own isn't necessarily going to get you to where you want to get to. You know, the execution of the right actions at the right time is what's going to get you there. And I think it's about getting very clear about, well, what are the most effective actions I can take today and tomorrow to get me to my plan B. And this is where obviously mentors and coaches can certainly help and support by helping sort of figure out, especially a mentor, you know, someone who's been where you want to go, can actually show you the right steps, you know, maybe the steps that they made that were mistakes, and the right actions to take to get you there as fast as possible. Because that's really the difference between success tomorrow and success in 10 years' time, is the right actions at the right time in the right sequence.
And there's a lot of different ways. I mean, coaches and mentors, I feel like would be the best bet. I've bought books, I've bought training courses, but to me, the best results come from having that coach or mentor. That's why I did shift to that model myself, where I help people with their podcasts, YouTube, virtual summits, and other things like that. So fantastic. I do feel like if you figure out like how you're going to get some kind of mentor or like the right actions, it's easier for you to be successful. But then my next question is, I mean, this Crave code, I feel like people they figure out what the right actions are, but they don't want to do them. So how do we get this sense of craving to take the right action?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting sort of concept, especially these days. You know, what I've noticed is that we all have the ability to crave, and we all crave constantly various things. But I think at the end of the day, what often happens is we're craving the wrong things. You know, whether we're craving foods, or whether we're craving the next app, or craving the next TV series, or we have this ability to crave it. It's a natural state of being, and it drives us to take certain actions. And I think way too often we crave the wrong things. And so the key here, along with the right actions, is to make sure we're craving the right things. What is the desire, that we really want? What is that destination? So if we imagine that right now we have a dream, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be a billionaire, or I want whatever it is I want, and then get really clear about, okay, what does that destination look like? And what does the destination feel like? And, what is that destination? And then we can start to increase our desire for the right things, to take the right actions. We can then, put ourselves in drive and get going, and then, sprinkle a whole lot of determination to actually make the destination come to us much, much faster. And I think that's what Crave is for me. Crave allows success and breakthrough to happen, and success to come much faster.
And I mean, we do crave a lot of the raw, food. Usually you hear the word craving, and it's not a good connotation. You hear about the food craving, you hear about cravings of
Yeah.
different bad habits and stuff like that. So in addition to craving the right actions, we should also stop craving the wrong things. So how exactly
Yes.
do we do that?
Yeah. I think there's a number of factors, especially when it comes to craving. We live in this sort of dopamine addicted society where, we just get the new thing at the push of a button, or we can buy something at the push of the button, and that leads to sort of craving the wrong things. So I think, the real key here is to not only dream or what I might call, imagine the outcome that you're looking for. It's really about igniting a feeling. It's about igniting the feeling of what it's going to be like when you achieve that thing, when you actually anchor that thing. And in the feeling, if you can sort of ignite and really intensify that feeling, then you're going to have the sort of dopamine rush as you sort of step through the process. And that's really the key here, is both having a mental sort of rush, a chemical rush, and that feeling rush to keep us in the sort of crave mode of the actual thing that we really do want to achieve. And so making sure that we're really amplifying those things, and the feeling of the things that we want to achieve is really a key to the success.
And you bring up an interesting point, like being able to build up on that feeling and crave that success, feel it as if it's actually real. And
absolutely,
a lot of people, like, you hear the term visualizing, and I definitely love the idea of visualizing. One of the only concerns I have with it, though, is that you think of yourself, as this like super person hitting all your goals, but just because you think of you project yourself out to be that person in the future and you think it, doesn't mean that's the case now. And I feel like some people, they get stuck in that fantasy land without taking action. So how can we still visualize ourselves, which is really good, but not get stuck in that fantasy?
Yeah. And it's really important. You make a great point. It is important not to get caught in just the imagining and the dreaming, because that alone is not going to create success. The key then is obviously to get really clear about, okay, what do I need to do with this? Once I've amplified or intensified the feeling, and I'm really anchored in the now, as you mentioned, and believing that it's here now, it's then about, really starting to take the action. So that's where you need to get clear about, what do I need to do? So one of the things that I do with people is we map out 12 months, for example, and we look at, well, what do you want to achieve in the 12 months? Let's really feel into it. Let's get really clear about what that's going to look like when in the 12 months. And then we sort of peg back 12 months and look at, okay, what needs to happen every quarter, what needs to happen every month, and what needs to happen every week to actually achieve that? What are the key milestones, the key goals that we need to do to achieve that? And then we want to look at the breakthrough. What are the things that are going to get in your road? And there are things like distractions and shiny object syndrome, which I've heard you mentioned on your podcast before, which is so true, that whole shiny object syndrome. And I've been guilty of that for sure. Then there's a whole procrastination epidemic that is just rife around the planet right now. And along with that is that sort of perfectionism. A lot of people trip themselves up in trying to get things perfect, trying to make it perfect. And in our world, that's just not realistic. Nothing's perfect, yet it's perfect all at the same time. So we've got to look at, what's going to trip you up along the journey, and then look at, okay, what are the strategies that we can put in place? And some of those strategies look like things I call move faster than the speed of disbelief. So when you get into some of these procrastination, distraction, and, these sort of sabotage patterns, sometimes it's moving really quickly. I had a thought yesterday, and I'm going to do a video on it today, because what happens sometimes when we get caught in our own sort of stuff, when we get sort of obstacles come up, or we start to feel down, or we start to feel like, oh, I'm no good, or I'm hopeless, and our old belief systems start to appear. There's a couple of things you can do, right? One is you can sit there and wallow in it, and amplify how bad you think you are, right? Which is all past perceived reality. It's got nothing to do with the moment of now. It's got everything to do with what maybe people have told you in the past, what you've thought about yourself in the past, and it's not real right now. But we tend to amplify that. We tend to start craving those feelings. And one of the great things to do to get out of that is to take an action really quickly, right? Is to ignore how you're feeling about it. So yesterday, and this is what happened for me, yesterday, I was feeling a little bit flat about some stuff, the week had been a tough week. I'm getting on a plane today to come to LA, and I was just feeling a little bit flat. And so what I tend to do is I go, right, what could I do right this second? And I thought about it, and I went, right, I'm going to go live on Facebook, and I'm just going to start talking. I'm going to talk about how I'm feeling. Maybe I'm going to start talking. And so when I got off that live 5 minutes later, I started feeling better. And I went, wow, this is good. So then I thought, well, I'm going to ring a client and help them through some stuff. So I took another action. And after that conversation, I felt fantastic. And it actually broke that, I actually broke through that feeling that I'd had. All of a sudden I was back on top of it again. I'm back on top of my game, because one of the things that happens between now and success is that your thoughts and feelings are going to deceive you, and you've got to be really careful about how much you buy into and how much you don't. And sometimes taking actions can break you out of it really, really quickly.
We have a lot more great content coming up in this episode, but first we have a quick message from our sponsor who helps people to get rich in real estate. Our sponsor for this episode, Elliot Bogod, recently wrote a book, Get Rich in Real Estate, Your Step-by-Step Guide to Acquiring Properties in NYC. And this book is a simple but detailed resource for real estate investors who want to get the principles of real estate investing and figure out what are the effective and proven strategies out there. So Get Rich in Real Estate. That book is on Amazon and other places. You could definitely go check it out. We will have a link to it in the show notes. Elliot was a previous guest on Breakthrough Success, and let's get right back into the episode. And I do like the idea of, if you're feeling down, what's one thing you could do right away to feel good or better about yourself? And like in Marcus's case, it was going on Facebook Live, and you should do something when you go to bed that makes you feel good, even if it's reading like 5 pages of a book, just so that you go to bed on a good thought rather than a bad thought. And I found it interesting you were talking about roadblocks also, because we could visualize all the success and stuff, but I don't want to say visualize or manifest roadblocks, because no one wants roadblocks, but it is important for you to think about. I mean, like there are going to be roadblocks on any success path, and just being able to know how you will respond to some of the different roadblocks that keep showing up, how you will power through them, and thinking that way will help you when those things happen, because you visualize all the success and then you hit a roadblock and it feels like you're going in the wrong direction. And then just knowing that they're there and knowing how to respond to them, I feel like could be really helpful for you to build on the craving as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's critical. I think one thing is definitely, that's definitely going to happen on the road to success is that you're going to hit roadblocks, obstacles. Things are going to come up to get in your road. Old belief systems, for example, old beliefs about yourself that you may have been told or you imagined one day come back to haunt you, and it tests you on this road to success, whatever that destination is for you. And I think you have to be really prepared for that and have sort of systems and processes in place. One of my key ones is move faster than the speed of disbelief, which is exactly what I did yesterday, where you just take an action quickly, or you go and do some of your magic as fast as possible. If you're a coach or a mentor, go speak to a client, help them do your magic. That'll make you feel so good. Go and help other people is a really, really great one along that journey. Just know it's definitely going to happen, and you have to be vigilant on it. And I really love what you just said about, go do something, before bed, do something really great. Read 5 pages of a book. One of the things I tend to do is watch comedy. And I watch comedy for 2 reasons. 1, to put me in a happy state and a joyous state. And 2, it's actually research. I love doing live stage presentations and keynotes. And comedians are fantastic storytellers. They use analogies beautiful, and it helps me to learn a bit more. So it's a bit like reading a book for me, but it does 2 things at once. And I think along this journey, one of the key pieces is what I call managing state, which is managing your state of mind, your state of feeling, and your state of being, and being really vigilant on what you're paying attention to. And way too often we pay attention to things that aren't real or don't really matter, like the famous influencer on Instagram, and or the people we see on Facebook and all the wonderful lives they're having and traveling around the world and making copious amounts of money. And regardless of whether that's true or not, we're obviously going to compare ourselves, and we've got to really make sure we're managing our state of being. Otherwise, we'll get tripped up at every turn.
And I love how you brought up the social media comparisons, because everyone's posting their highlight reel. No one's posting their darkest moment on social media. It's like on the beach, chilling, no prep work. Yeah. So none of that stuff's coming on social media. And I feel like when you do compare yourself to other people, that could take away the momentum that you have. So let's say you want to be a best-selling author and you see someone who's already selling 100,000 books. And you just feel like, man, I'm only selling X amount of books. I'm not really getting it done properly. I should be at that level. Or you think thoughts like that. So granted, social media is something you got to use for a business standpoint. So how can we be able to be happy for other people who are successful, but not take it as a comparison or take it as I am so far behind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about being inspired by others' success. That's really, really important. I think one of the things that definitely helps me with that is gratitude, practicing gratitude for what I do have, not for what I don't have or where I think I should be. And in any given moment, I'm in exactly the right place that I need to be, right? It might not be quite at the success I want right now, but being really grateful for now and exactly what I've got now, and looking at other people and being jealous or wishing I had that doesn't make that come any faster, right? What it actually does is it starts taking what you have away, because you're almost saying what I've got now is not good enough, or I'm not good enough, or and that's not true. You're perfect exactly the way you are right now, and you're on a journey, right? And it's all about the journey. So be grateful for what you have, congratulate other people for what they have, and then get back focused on what you need to do in the next moment. And take that next action, and don't allow yourself to be paralyzed with I'm not good enough, they're all better than me. There's a little bit of a sort of syndrome that happens for authors, I find. That's happened with me. The minute you decide to write a book or share some intellectual property or an idea, you go out and research, well, what's in the market at the moment, and all of a sudden you find all these things that are in the market. There are lots of books on the topic you want to write about. And instantly you start reading some of these books and you drop into, well, what have I got to offer? I'm no good. Everyone's come up with the answers, and all these books have got the answers. And an amazing mentor of mine once said, when you're reading a book or you're looking at someone else's success, look at it through 2 eyes. And this is almost like, so for example, for the book idea, if you're reading a book, have 2 pads of paper next to you. On one pad have yes, but, and on the other pad have yes, and. And so as you're reading the chapters of the book, instead of going, oh my God, they're better than me, or they've got all the answers and I've got nothing, as you're reading it, go, yes, but I reckon there's this piece of the puzzle that author's missed, or yes, and I could add all this to that piece of the puzzle. And I think when you start to do that, you start to open yourself up to possibility. You start to open up to, wow, they're amazing, but hey, I've also got some amazing as well. And my voice is just as valid as their voice, regardless of what I perceive as more or less successful.
And I really love that exercise, yes, and yes, but, because those 2 exercises kind of force you to think of yourself on a higher level when you compare yourself to others. And I feel like I feel like everyone does it to some capacity, but if you have yes and yes, but, it is going to help you put yourself in a higher position in your own mental state. So I definitely love that idea. Another idea that I love, this episode. And I think if you guys like this episode a lot, you should definitely go check out Marcus's work. So for people who are wondering, where exactly do I go to learn more about Marcus, where are some good places we can go?
You can go to my website, marcusbird.net, and it's Marcus, marcusbird.net, or hit me up on social media. Instagram is Marcus Wellness Leader, or at Marcus Wellness Leader. And obviously on Facebook, I'm Marcus Bird 13. You can, hit me up there. I'm dropping lots of free content all the time. And, I'm super passionate about helping your audience and people to really step into their full potential to achieve their dreams and goals and have an absolutely abundant business and an abundant life. Because I think when that happens, we're going to make this planet a much, much better place. And so I'm crazy passionate about really supporting and empowering people to step into that potential.
Marcus, thanks for sharing those resources with us. We will throw all those in the show notes. But once again, it was such a pleasure having you on the show. Everyone listening, I hope you got a lot of value from this episode because Marcus really came through for us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on Breakthrough Success.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mark. And I really loved it. Thanks, mate.